Hello, everyone. I'm Lana Zach. Thank you for joining us once again here on CBS News 24/7. It is a big breaking news day. The United States has secured the release of 3 Americans who were being held prisoner in Russia. Now they are heading home. The deal includes Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. He was sentenced to 16 years in a maximum security prison on espionage charges just 2 weeks ago. Marine veteran Paul Whelan, who has been imprisoned for almost 6 years, is part of this exchange. And Russian-American journalist Alsu Kumasheva was also included in the deal. Now, the homepage of the Wall Street Journal proclaims that their reporter, Evan Gershkovich, is free. The release of these prisoners was part of a historically complex prisoner swap between 6 different countries, including the U.S. and Russia. In total, 24 prisoners are being released. 8 of them will be returned to Russia. CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis is following this for us from Washington. Olivia, until that plane is in the air, there's always a bit of anxiety about this, particularly because this was such a complicated, major international effort. Talk to us about how all of these countries were able to coordinate this prisoner swap.
Absolutely, Lana. I think hundreds of people have been waiting to exhale, and when the wheels of that plane left the tarmac, finally were able to. Officials have been telling me, ones who are intimately involved in this deal, that it has been the most complex in the history of U.S.-Russian relations and possibly even U.S.-Soviet relations when, as we all know, spy swaps hit a crescendo during the Cold War. And the reason for that, as we're learning now, is the sheer number of countries involved and the fact that this is involved political prisoners and not spies. We're just now learning that there were more than 6 countries involved, if you look at the numbers. The U.S., Slovenia, Poland, Norway, Russia, of course, Turkey offering the swap site. As a result, 3 U.S. citizens are coming home, in addition to 1 green card holder, Kremlin critic Vladimir Kara-Murza, who is also opting to come to the United States. We have 12 German nationals and Russian political prisoners heading to Germany. Now they are free. And in exchange, we have 8 Russian nationals going back to Russia, among them a cyber criminal held by the United States, a money launderer, and perhaps most importantly, Vadim Krasikov, who the Russians have had their eye on. This is a former FSB agent and a convicted murderer who had been serving a life sentence in Germany, now a free man heading back to Moscow. This has also involved multiple government agencies. And while U.S. officials, we understand, tried to keep these discussions about Evan and Paul in diplomatic channels so as not to give credence to the espionage allegations brought by Russia against them, the Russians, in fact, insisted that negotiations take place in intelligence channels, and the CIA has been instrumental in this breakthrough.
All right, Olivia, thank you so much. We want to bring in now CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer. She's in London. Elizabeth, you have been following particularly the case of Paul Whelan extensively. You've spoken with his family. You were in court. How did this trial play out? What were the efforts to get him freed?
He's the one who has been held the longest, almost 6 years. And we were there when he was arrested. He was arrested in December of 2018, and he appeared first in court in January. The trial was closed, but they, as is often the case, and we saw in Gershkovich too, the reporters are allowed into the courtroom briefly to have a look at the prisoner, and then they are thrown out. So we never got to hear any of the evidence. On the face of it, he had gone to a wedding in Russia. He was in his hotel in the lobby, came down to the lobby, and suddenly the FSB picked him up. They said that he was in possession of a thumb drive in his pocket that contained all kinds of classified information. But none of that was ever introduced into the public domain. The American government has been categorical. It was a completely false accusation. In effect, Paul Whelan was a poker chip for something that Russia might want to trade for later, which appears to have happened today.
And let's talk about that idea of political prisoners as poker chips, because as you have been reporting, this doesn't bring every American home, and that there are some that are still in Russian prisons that objectively those are for criminal acts. But then there are others, like the case of Ksenia Karelina, who allegedly contributed to a pro-Ukrainian protest and is now being held on charges of treason. As we celebrate the return of these Americans, talk to us about how others may still be used as poker chips and how their families are probably doing right now.
Well, as I counted up how many there are, and I believe there are 7. Of those 6 have been arrested on criminal charges, everything from embezzlement and bribery to hitting a policeman while drunk on a train. These are less likely to have had evidence fabricated. They're just plain old criminal charges. And their families will be devastated, but perhaps more resigned. In some cases, the sentences are much shorter, 3 years, 4 years, something like that. As you said, the one that really stands out is Ksenia Karolina. She contributed, according to her family and her lawyers, $50 to a fund that supported Ukrainian forces. But she has been charged with the most serious of crimes in Russia, treason. That means that her trial will be a secret, and she could go down for 20 years. Now, the trial's been paused. It's not clear why she wasn't included in this swap, but it may be because her trial was underway, which is unfortunate for her. We know in the case, for example, of Gershkovich, the Russians said, listen, we will trade him, but his trial has to be finished before we can actually negotiate the swap. So it may be just a case of terrible luck for Karolina, and we won't know until she goes back into court and we see whether there is any kind of an effort to get her sentence done too. But certainly her family will be heartbroken because she isn't among the very happy group who are heading home.
Yeah, and of course, it's worth saying that that this deal doesn't preclude other deals from happening. And I'm curious, Elizabeth, given your expertise in all of this, does it seem more likely that deals might be able to be agreed upon in the future, given that Russia-U.S. relations are at this very low point? It is historic that this deal has happened. Might it pave the way for better relations?
I wish I could say
optimistically,
yes.
Right?
I think not. I mean, I think it's extraordinary that as U.S.-Russia relations are at the lowest ebb in decades, this was able to happen. It's amazing and very good for all those involved. It's the largest prisoner exchange since the end of the Cold War, so in the modern era with Russia. You have to go back to Soviet times and 1985 when Polish intelligence officer Marian Zakarsky was traded in Berlin for 23 Westerners who had been jailed across the Soviet bloc for spying, and that was a real Cold War swap. It took place on the notorious Bridge of Spies in Berlin. It was real Cold War stuff. This is a much more modern iteration. I suppose if we want to be optimistic, if a prisoner swap could be negotiated now, it could be negotiated anytime because relations just couldn't be worse.
All right. Elizabeth Palmer, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
We want to go now to Ambassador William Taylor. He's the Vice President of Europe and Russia at the U.S. Institute of Peace. He's also the former United States Ambassador to Ukraine. Ambassador, good to have you here. Talk to us, first of all, about the process and all the political nuances involved with getting these detained Americans released, especially given the complexity of multiple countries being involved.
Absolutely. This has been in the works for some time, apparently, with all these different countries making a contribution. It makes it very complicated, but also emphasizes the importance of having good allies. I mean, all these nations that we're talking about here are allies, are working with us, and they've kept it quiet. The amazing thing is it hasn't leaked out, and it came to a success. So this is a good day for the American diplomacy.
Our viewers are looking at a map with all the 6 different countries that were involved in this highlighted. And one of those in particular I want to talk to you about, Germany, because they had a prisoner that Russia really wanted released in this deal. Talk to us about what Germany has to gain by agreeing to cooperate, what sorts of agreements and incentives they may have had to release this prisoner in order for the U.S. to get these 3 Americans home.
Well, we understand that there were some Germans that were also released. So the Germans did get their 12 Germans out. You are exactly right. The Americans, we Americans got these high-profile 3 that have been in the news and held up as a problem, and now they are coming back. So the Germans, the Americans did get some, and then the other allies helped out. So this was a complex negotiation. The Germans came out ahead, the Americans came out ahead.
And in terms of complex allies, Turkey played a major role in this prisoner swap. And if our control room can do so, I'd like to put back up some of those images of the planes on the tarmac there in Ankara. And we are going to watch as hopefully this plane takes off right now. We're continuing to watch this. But when we talk about Turkey's role in actually being the physical location that all of these different countries can agree to, what does that mean in terms of the logistics, in terms of diplomatic relations, and Turkey's unique role in the world stage?
Turkey does have an unusual role, but we know that they helped out, the Turks helped out in an agreement between the Russians and Ukrainians on the grain exports a year ago. Now, of course, the Russians subsequently went back on that deal, but while it was in effect, the Turks and the UN, by the way, played a big role in that negotiations. The Ukrainians did not talk directly to the Russians. They would not. The Russians have been such horrible actors on the world stage, committing such atrocities that the Ukrainians wouldn't talk to them. But the Ukrainians would talk to the UN, would talk to the Turks, and the Turks and the UN then talked to the Russians. And they got that deal done to say that the Turks have played a positive role in some of these negotiations.
Okay, Ambassador William Taylor, really appreciate you giving us this insight, as today is one for the history books. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Lana.